Record. All right. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. It's another 4DMethod 4D user group meeting. Today is March 31st, 2021. This is meeting number 49. My gosh, we're closely approaching 50. Thanks so much for being here and joining us and taking part in this and all of the other meetings before this. What we have on our agenda today is talk a little bit about what we're doing with 4DMethod. We'll get some 4D news from Jim Sobczak. I'll highlight a few blog articles on the 4D blog. A lot of great content there continues to come out. And then we'll have our special topic, the Argus development environment, shell and tools for 4D from our own Jody Bevan. And we'll have Q&A and talk about the next meeting on May 12th of this year. So my name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4DMethod 4D user group. The website is, as you would know if you're connecting to this, is 4dmethod.com. Can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. I'm a longtime 4D developer. I'm a career guy, as they say. And my day job is at the Art Institute of Chicago. It's an art museum here in the US. And we use 4D for keeping track of our extensive art collection. And but I also organize 4DMethod, and what we do in the user group is I started this a few years ago to bring together a scattered community of developers and users around the world. We use Zoom video conferencing for meetings, just like the rest of the world in the pandemic, to allow people to participate from anywhere. Just like today, we have Jody presenting to us from Central America, our first Central American demo. But all of the meetings are recorded and made available on the 4DMethod YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure, binge watching. We're just the whole point of it is just to provide throughout the year fresh new content and exposure for users and developers of 4D applications, and to just provide a place for us all to get together and take a look at kind of like a 4D summit or conference, what you would see at a conference. However, we're just highlighting one demo in each meeting. So thanks again for joining us. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jim in California at 4D to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with 4D, the company.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, hard to believe that your 50th meeting is coming up. We should have some type of party, online party. It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you
to all the people who have been involved with 4DMethod, and we're happy to be taking part in this too. So, greetings everyone from California. I hope you all are well, staying healthy. As Brent mentioned, we're also looking forward to Jody Bevan's presentation on the Argus development environment. Jody has been a longtime friend to me, him and his family when they were at Janoki Med. They're still contributors to the 4D community big time, and he was one of our most important members of the 4D OEM program when he was with Janoki Med. It's going to be great to see what he's up to. Yeah, he's living in Belize now, as most of you know. If you've ever been to Belize, it's an incredibly beautiful country. Hope to go down there and visit him one of these days. So updates from 4D here in Silicon Valley. Like most of you, we're still working from home. We're getting closer to allowing people more access to their offices and other amenities. We'll continue to remain vigilant, of course, but more and more people are getting vaccinated in California now. So it looks like we may be headed in the right direction, and hopefully that's the case. Business update, 2021 is off to an incredible start for us. Q1 is looking to be one of our best quarters ever since I've been with 4D, which is about 23 years. Thank you all for your maintenance renewals, your partnership renewals. We're getting really strong numbers from our OEM partners, new purchases of 4D software, and of course, the growth of the professional services program. So thanks again to all of you for your support of 4D. New software releases, I'm going to leave this up to Brent. He does a great job of describing the new features and the new releases of 4D, so I'll defer to him to bring you up to speed on that. We're planning, as you know, V18R5 is the current production release, with V18R6 in beta. We're hoping to release V18R6 in mid-April, right around the 15th. We look to be on track for that. And then soon after the release, as we have been doing recently, 4D will present a webinar showing some of the great new features in V18R6. That will be done by Ad and Will Taylor. The last presentation we had almost 100 users just checking it out. So I think we'll have more on this one, and we're looking forward to doing that. And then immediately after the release of V18R6, we will start the beta program for V19. So yeah, a new version of 4D coming down the pipe, and we're all very excited about that. With the R releases, I think you all know what some of the new features are going to be in V19, but it's going to be great to get there finally. I wanted to spend a little time talking about training. This is a big topic for us internally at 4D. We brought it up at the Summit Business presentation, that the training and learning center will be big focus for us going forward. And we're doing that now. Last week, we had our first beginner training in a couple of years. We had 16 attendees, I believe. 15 of those attendees came from one of our largest companies. A good mix of recent computer science graduates, some business and management folks were in there, and some end users too. And so far, the feedback has been very positive about that beginner training. It's difficult to teach a beginner training class when you have a wide variety of experience in programming, but I think that our trainer did a fantastic job. And we're planning another one for the week of May 17th. It's almost sold out. To tell you the truth, there are, I think, 4 or 5 spots left. So if you have someone in your organization who wants to be trained on 4D, this is a great way to get them started. And then I'm going to announce something today that's kind of a soft launch of what we call the on-demand training center that is in the store. If you go to store.4d.com, you can now purchase the materials from the trainings that were given last year and this year. That includes JPR's advanced training, Thomas Mall's session on project mode, when, where, and why to use project mode, Olivier Deschanel's session on taking care of queries, getting ready for order. Everything that we presented basically is now for sale in the on-demand training center in the 4D store. So check that out after this meeting. There are detailed descriptions of each session in the store, and we're looking forward to getting your response about that. But I checked it out today, and it seems like it's working fine. And you get a link to the YouTube video as well as the training session. So it's pretty cool. Other marketing things that we're focusing on, 4D View Pro campaign. I'm sure you've seen email coming from our marketing department about that. We're offering temporary licenses for 4D View Pro so you can take time to explore it, both in your development environment and in production if you want to. The campaign is partially based on the webinar that Will Taylor gave a couple months ago on 4D View Pro, and was well attended. So check that out if you can. Don't forget about free V18 upgrade reports. So basically that's a report about what it takes to bring your application up to V18. If you're interested, contact your account manager. They'll set that up for you and you can get rolling on that. And discuss.4d.com, I continue to be really happy with the way that the new forum is working. I know that most of you on this call have been in the forum and have posted on it. Thank you all for moving your discussions there. I do see some people still participating on the iNug, which is fine. I just think the forum is such a great place now for feedback and more community support and more support from both our engineering team and our tech support folks. And don't forget about the sub forum on discuss.4d.com, which is the feature request sub forum. We do monitor that very closely now to see what people want in new versions of 4D, what we can throw into V19 or, well, in our release of V19, but we do follow those very closely. So please get your feature request in there when you have time. And the final topic for me, and I think Brent has a slide about this, is the fire at the OHV data center in Strasbourg, France. So I want to thank you all for your patience while we work through the ramifications of that fire at the data center earlier this month. It took down millions of sites all over the place, including French government agencies, web portals, banks. There was a cryptocurrency site that went down, many news websites, and a chunk of the .fr web space went down as well. Over 100 firemen worked on the fire. It was massive. Yeah, it was a big, had a big effect on the internet everywhere. And of course, some of our 4D sites were located there, and as you know, they were affected. We did work as quickly as possible to put up a temporary site until the damage could be totally determined. I think we did a good job on that. It's a huge effort to do that. And I'm happy to say now that 95% of the key content of our website has been reintegrated into 4D.com. It's a very complex website, as you can imagine. Of the 5% that's missing from the website, about 90% of that data has been secured, and that will be up there very soon. So thanks again for your patience. I got a couple emails there. I know there were a couple discussions on the forums, like what happened. And yeah, so that's about all the information I have about exactly how it affected us internally or what we did. As we get more information, we'll probably post something on the forums, but I'm not sure about that. So that's about it for me, Brent, unless anyone has any questions or comments about what's going on at 4D.
No, thanks, Jim. That's a lot of great information there, and it's really nice to see 4D providing all this training. I know over the years there's been some attempts at that, and but it's nice to see you guys taking a real organized and continued approach at it and providing good content, and having it on demand is nice too. I mean, that's you know, it doesn't always fit people's schedule you can't host it every week, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I guess maybe somebody can correct me, but I think that's a JPR quote on the screen there. One backup is no backup. Ed, we like to quote that at the museum because you know we're always.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, that you know he probably wouldn't deny it anyways. But yeah, it's always good to have multiple backups, and perhaps not in the same site on site. You know, off-site backups are good. And but yeah, so that was quite an event. I guess I picked a very opportune time to catch up on Mr. Robot. I don't know if that was where eCorp had their storage, but yeah, had a similar ending apparently. So any Mr. Robot fans out there? No? Okay. But yeah, and just again a little bit about R6. Real exciting that this is going to be out in the middle of this month of April. Next month, is it still March? But still some really nice stuff coming out in R6. I think as I mentioned in the last meeting, but I'll regurgitate it here. It's got the scalable web sessions where you can have several different processes in a single web session, and preemptive processes for one web session. So you can really unleash some processing power per web session, which is pretty cool. For more features for 4D for iOS, including the barcode scanner and many-to-many relationships. I know at the museum we're curious about the barcode scanning functionalities. And yeah, they keep on releasing some valuable functionality for 4D for iOS. So it's going to be neat when more people start using it and having more feature requests for their specialized iOS apps. Moving on, OAuth 2.0 tokens for mail transporters, upgrading the mail capabilities in 4D, and the new debugger features with being able to see the parameters and function comments from within the debugger for, depending on how you comment, you might be putting all of your comments above where functions start in a class, and then you can't see them in the debugger, but you can now. So check it out with the beta, because it's around the corner. Question in the chat, 4D for Android, any estimate of when or if? I know that they have intentions for that. I'm not sure if there's anything on the schedule beyond that. Jim, do you have any?
Don't have a schedule for that, Brent. But it's definitely in our roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a date for release.
Yeah, I know that with what they're doing with 4D for iOS, it's providing a very nice roadmap for doing the same with Android. And obviously it'd be a bit of a different code base between the two, but it'll I'm sure with people picking up and starting to run with 4D for iOS, that'll provide some good reason for them to make the same for Android. Anyways, and at the 4D blog, again, just it is the best place to see what's coming up in new versions and in the current version of 4D, and how to use it, and they have some great coding demonstrations there. However, the first one was more of a factual article, deprecated and removed 4D features, why and how. That's always a good thing to be able to explain to people, 4D explaining it to us and us explaining it to our clients, why code needs to be updated in their long working applications. Sometimes language functionality gets deprecated and needs to be re-engineered in our own applications. So I found that article interesting, if for no other reason than to be able to show to people to say, this is why you need work in your app. This is why we need to touch this. So yeah, so check that out. But it's also interesting because so much of 4D new functionality is being made available in project mode, and in some cases also related to the classes, the new classes that are in project mode only. And so, it's a heavy load to bear to make everything reverse compatible. Is that the right way? Backwards compatible, not reverse. Yes. Inverse compatible. Anyways, one of those over all of the language in 4D going back throughout the years. And so we all might want to consider the fact that, yes, they're starting to beat the drum about things being deprecated and removed. Yeah. So anyways, the next one is a great blog article, story behind 4D's new Markdown-based documentation site, which may sound familiar to any of you who were in the last 4DMethod meeting, where we had Arnaud Schmidt here and going through and giving us a tour of what's happening, behind the scenes with 4D documentation and how they've been able to keep that up with the new language changes and how it's slowly but surely migrating to a whole new paradigm. But yeah, another really great article that was written by a guest author, apply naming conventions with form macros. It's a new functionality, and I think it's R5 or R6, R5 perhaps. I think it's R5. Anyways, in one of the recent R versions, we have the ability to write form macros to edit the form and to do all kinds of interesting stuff. And let's see if I can take a swing at the name. Michael Huna from München, Deutschland, our friends in 4D Deutschland. Yeah, he's new to 4D, but he actually did a really good job of walking us through how to take advantage of the new form macros and how to write one specifically that renames all of the object names related to a list box, which can become tiresome because there's so many names. There's footers, there's headers, there's column names, and so on and so forth. Bigger the list box, the more time you have to spend doing that. And anyways, it provided a really nice example of how to take advantage of the new form macros. And I'm sure it'll give a lot of people great ideas for what else they can do with it. Just like we've been using other macros in the method editor and development for years. And the last one is 4D for iOS, new 4D for iOS feature, the push notification with data synchronization. They've had the ability to do push notifications for some time now with 4D for iOS, but this is actually kind of groovy because you can not only, put the message in, the title and the body, as you see in the little snippet here, but you can include a flag for the app to update its local cache of data. So if you want to send somebody information, they should be looking at current data in the app that you're trying to alert them to. So that's pretty handy. Again, they're really rounding out the offering with 4D for iOS. Okay, and then let's get to the meat of the show here. I'm just
Brent, can I make one comment? Can you go back a slide before you introduce Jody, please?
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there. We did have a new blog post that I wanted to bring to your attention that was put up earlier this week by Marie Sophie, who does some tremendous work in 4D France. If you followed her blog post. So this is a new one called 4D Data Explorer in Action. The 4D Data Explorer is currently in preview mode, but she's put together a really interesting 4-minute video on what it does and how it works in a web browser. So yeah, that's brand new. So please check that out when you have time. I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it is brand new. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Oh yeah, no worries. Now that is the latest article on the blog that I had time to take a peek at, but yeah, I didn't update the slides. It is definitely very cool, as Kirk said in the chat there. Currently, it's you can launch it from the development in the 4D development environment, and then it goes to a web browser, and you can browse. You can go through all of the data in your database, just like, say, you would. I was just looking recently at ads auto forms. I think you're on here. Thanks for those auto forms. We use those that component at the museum still, but it's kind of a similar thing where you can choose which fields you want to see in the data list view, and then be able to click into each of the records and see all the fields in each of the records. And I know that that's a big step towards being able to have these kind of offerings as a web application that we had a sneak peek at in the last summit. So definitely cool. Check out that latest blog article. All right. Yeah. Okay, Jody.
Hello there.
So Jody, as we mentioned, is joining us from Belize. Thanks for joining us. However, his Spanish still sounds suspiciously Canadian, as you'll see. Jody's been developing commercially with 4D since 1988. And as Jim said, he's best known for Janoki Med, paperless knowledge-based medical application. It became the largest medical application of its type in Canada, with 20% of the Canadian population cared for in that system, which is just, that's a lot of people. Jody is also well known in the 4D community for his open invitations to jump out of perfectly good airplanes at 4D summits. I regret never having joined him for a jumper 3 or 10, as I used to do that in my former life as well. But now, between goat kidding seasons and whatnot, Jody spends his time farming, breeding, training dogs, flying planes, scuba diving, and still belting out great 4D code. So he's taken all of his previous 4D experience and rolled it into the Argus development environment. So welcome to 4DMethod, and thanks for providing us with an overview of your shell.
Thank you, Brent, and also to Jim for your kind words.
Oops. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to screen share.
I gotta back this up. It doesn't matter because I'm going to stop sharing and let you share.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
All
right. Okay, so just a little bit about me and what plan to do today. So I'm going to show you a presentation that I was going to give at the 4D Summit in 2020. And of course, most of us know what happened back in 2020. Hope it's the last time for sure, because I like to get off to meet everybody at the summits. So I wasn't able to give that because I had things on the farm that I had rearranged, and I just was swamped with that work. And when the babies are coming, you got to be there. So that's really what it amounted to for me. So the Argus development environment, and first off, I'll say that this was a team effort between my son Adam, who worked at Janoki, but now is also in a tropical climate down in Australia working, but he's still in the medical field working programming with 4D. But before he got there, him and I spent a couple of years building this from the ground up. So there was a lot of time and effort and thinking going into it. But it's really based on 34 years of my programming behind me, of which 32 were with 4D. So, and of course, in all of those years, I did a lot of bad things. And from doing those bad things, I was punished by bugs. And so, there's nothing that that makes one write better code the next time than when you have to suffer through writing bugs that you wrote, fixing bugs that you wrote. Of course, it also came from managing a team of experienced and new 4D programmers. And so I would have to go, and while having, with Janoki Med, the way it worked in Canada is every province, and in some cases in sub areas, we would have to validate our code in front of a team of testers, and they would have test cases that they would give to us, and we'd have to prove that it worked. The scary thing is if it didn't work, you were out of that market. And of course, from a business perspective, that's just a little bit stressful. But back in 1992, I started to write things in 4D that helped us manage all aspects of our business, and kept building that up until it really took over our whole company, as far as the call center and programming, information, and things like that. And actually, when we got our company Janoki got ISO 9001:2000 certified, the examiner from the Netherlands commented that in all of his years of validating software companies, he had never seen one with a software product that fitted so closely to the type of business we are in and really handled everything. So I think, yes, it was hats off to us, but it was also hats off that 4D could actually do that, the software. In my last 10 years of being at Genoki, I probably spent more time writing code in that application than I did in the application that we sold, because I had a good team that did most of the code. And what I found was that good communication between all the programmers and the installers and the support staff and the management of the information made a great difference in the quality of our code. Another big factor in quality of our code was setting standards for our coding. And we would have a once a week developer meeting, and we would hash things out and try to always improve our code. And once 4D permitted us via the 4D language to start to manipulate the methods, these standards became even more important, because some things I'll show a little bit later. It's important that when you want to have code that actually goes through your whole application, and we had well over 1 million lines of code, it would go through the whole application and it could make changes to it. You got to have standards, because you don't want the thing making changes where it's going to cause a problem. So, it became possible for us to write code that would write code itself, that would remove code, would add code, and of course started to report on code issues and incomplete code and time that we spent coding and much, much more. And I know that on 4DMethod, we've seen some other people that have presented some code that they've written in 4D that does the same kind of thing. And it's really powerful, and it gives me as a business owner, as a software developer, it gave me a lot more confidence in what we were putting out the door, because we knew that it had gone through all of this automated testing, which can do so many things in minutes or hours. So that was really nice, and that's really nice that 4D is adding new things. And I think it's 18R5 or R6 that even has another feature that I requested some years ago that's in there. That's really nice. So the purpose of the presentation, we'll go here. The presentation's intention is to show how at Argus we have used the 4D language to create a tool to improve the speed of our coding, the quality of our code, improve the management of our projects, and provide a higher degree of quality for our code. It's of course, using well thought out code and form standards is critical to the success. And one of the things that we found out, and we got to document this, was that if we moved buttons 5 pixels in any direction, we would get complaints from users. They really complained when we moved them all from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen, because their logic was that we wanted the menus and the buttons to be close together so they didn't have to move their mouse far, but that caused a lot. I got a lot of phone calls where they really let me have it. Of course, our clients were doctors, so they can do that. So all of these things that we've done has been using the 4D language, nothing else, nothing external. And the issues that we'll be talking about, I think, you're gonna find that they're very important issues that every programmer, business manager, and CEO would be concerned about and want to continually improve. This is a tool that we now use for all of our projects. In fact, I had to use it for a project recently that I couldn't use it for a project that I worked on recently, and I just felt like I went back into the Stone Age of developing. And that has really pushed me to turn the Argus development environment from a shell into a component. So I'm very hard at work at doing that right now. Okay, the format of the presentation is really, I'm going to go in, you're going to see the Argus in a system that I had finished working on and last year in March for the summit. So that's the version of the Argus development environment tool that you're going to see. And so I'll describe the feature, then I'm going to demonstrate the feature in that application, and then discuss some of the programming ramifications of the feature, if there are any. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop over to the demo database that Brent has put up on GitHub that you can download along with my presentation and the keynote. But it's code that you can go in, it's uncompiled. Of course, it has to be because there's bugs that I want some of the tools to find. So that's my excuse. So I'll show you that and how the code works. Now, the reason that I wanted to do that separately, even in this presentation, is, of course, we got a lot of very fancy code and stuff that is in all of our code. And that gets to be confusing when you're trying to see through all of the weeds there, the code that specifically does the things that the development environment is doing. So that nice little database really helps you to clearly see those things. So who would use the Argus development environment tool? Well, I think that any developer or a team new to 4D they would be a good group of people that would want to use the ADE. It comes, the component or the shell comes with over 500 pages of documentation to explain why we do things a certain way, or if you need to add a menu or you need to do this or that, you can just look in the table of contents and jump to that area, so that you don't have to, people that are new to it, they don't have to go through all the pain that most of us went through to figure out how to get it done. And anybody doing a major upgrade to say version 17 or 18, that would be good. I've been busy doing, since I'm a 4D old timer, I can go back into a version. I've done an upgrade from as far back as 3.4 and up to version 17, and I did another one from 6.8 to 17. So those are all fun to work with. If you are a chief information officer or a CEO, or you're a manager of a programming team, the Argus development tool will give you a lot of reporting on the development team, what each person's doing, what are the outstanding issues in that, and I'll show you some of that. An important thing to do is standardizing your code, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but I really can't stress that enough, because a lot of programmers are against that, but it really is important. If you need many more features that you don't have, say if you're coming from 6.8 and you want to get all the whiz-bang features that can be used in the later versions of 4D, then this would be a good tool. Of course, quality assurance of code, that's very important, and to speed up your coding. And I remember that after Adam and I had finished a lot of the code in the ADE, of course, you're always adding features, but most of it, and I was coding and I just started to laugh because how fast, even doing forms. Now, when back at Janoki, when we would code before we had this tool, I remember thinking, when I'd be coding something, I go, oh, it's a little bit more complex, and I think, I know we've done that before, and then I try to think of, well, in a million lines of code, where did we do that, and try to find it, because it's much easier to copy it and then paste it in and then just adjust it a little bit. Well, what you're going to see with a couple of the tools, this has that in spades, and that it made it so much easier for doing coding, even with forms. So it'll speeds up your coding. And the thing to remember is this is just all done with 4D. So I'm not, there's no plugins, there's nothing external. So it's all done, and most of it was actually done in version 15, 16, but then of course 17 came out with some new commands. So that's what there's nothing in the ADE right now that wouldn't work in version 17. And of course, as I talked about, I'm moving it all to a component because I don't want the pain of doing any more upgrades without it. I want to be able to if I get a job from a customer, I want to drop my component in, have all the tools I'm used to and all the reporting it does, do all the work. I can pull the component out, and nothing that I've done is dependent upon it, and give it back to them. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. And of course, having it in the component gives a lot more speed, because there are some reports and some of the tasks that it does that can be done, that it has to be done obviously in uncompiled, but if the component itself is compiled, it's going to generate a lot more speed for me. And of course, the lesson for you and why you're here is that you could do this yourself. You could write it, but I know that it took Adam and I a couple of years to write it. And of course, there's the big job ahead of writing it all in order. And Adam has done a lot of that work already. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is actually the first one that we developed, and which is called dev macro. So I'm going to drop down into some code here, and or not code, into an actual, well, there'll be some code too. I'm going to, and I am running this on 18R5, I believe it is. No, just 18.4. Okay, so I'm going to just go into my method. I do all sorts of things. Now, here's the dev macros. So, of course, Adam has a different style of coding than I do in the sense of what he thinks is important and what I think is important. And that's valid. And so one of the things is that a lot of this is customizable. What shows up here is customizable. What shows up in pop-ups, you know, like I have my favorites, and those are customizable right from here. I can just say, edit this menu. I can click that and I can add new features in that are in our, say, here's kind of the repository of all of the methods we have in here. And so what I found that when I was developing with this tool is that I would develop little tools as I was going with a new project that was really specific to that project. But then it was things that I was having to do. If I had to do something repetitively 2, maybe 3 times, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do this so many times. I made a tool that would look after it. Of course, a lot of this stuff, when you look at it, I'm going to go to, say, clairvoyance, and I'll go pick, you know, if I have a field that I want to have clairvoyance involved in it, so then I would just go to there, double click, and there it is. The code is pasted in, all to our standard. And of course, your standard is different, and if you were to buy the ADE, you can customize all of this. Everything that's in the dev macros, that's totally customizable by you. And you would just provide it as text files, and it'll import it in for you. But you can see we have our headers the way we want, and of course created by me at this date and this time, and the way we declare our variables, that kind of a thing, and the way we would write a code to do that. And in this case, it's ready. There's nothing I need to do. That's got the clairvoyance for that field done, handled. And we have things, you know, on after keystroke, on data change, and on mouse enter and on mouse leave, because we do things specifically in relation to help and that kind of thing. So I'll show you that one. And what else am I going to do? So we have some more for like, well, header objects, those are bigger ones. So I would go and say, I want to do I'm going to go, I don't want header form. Forms. Okay. So for example, here's a form. And so again, it's to our standard, but it puts in what we wanted in what we would want as a kind of the minimal form, what we would need to do. Now, let's say that I'm in this form and then I think, oh, I want to have a list box. Well, I could have selected a form method with list box, because nowadays so many of our forms have list boxes in them. I would have selected that to begin with, but I can go to my list box heading area, and I could go in there and say, okay, I need to do a setup list box method kind of a thing. So I got a whole bunches of list box things. And so the number of times that I need to, you know, I don't always need to get arrays of all the columns. In fact, often that's just for debugging. But if I needed that, I can go there and click it in. I don't have to think about what the parameters are, what the, you know, what code do I need to write, right? But this is the kind of thing that this is for me. I find this hugely great for coding with this little dialogue here. And so it can, now, you know, and in the project I did where I didn't have the ADE me, yes, I went in here and I started writing little macros that could do things. But the biggest one was to write one called Jody's Tools that then I could go and write a whole bunch of 4D code, and I could have it do a lot of this, you know, do some of the same things that I could do with the ADE. Now, some of the things, like a project I'm just finished last week, they had some resources that they were putting into the specialized 4D folders, say like I think is it the active 4D folder? Well, this kind of a thing is just too nice, because this one, you know, it's not the one that you can just get to real easy, but there it is. So now I can get to that. But to open these up, and they were putting other resources into the resources folder, right? And so to be able to go there, oh, there, I got a bug in that. Imagine that. And so all of those kinds of things. And the macros folder, of course, is important to me. Oh, those were working yesterday. So that just opens up the window. That's all it does. It's nothing really super fancy that way. One of the things that I'm really a big user of is logs. And actually, I'll just go into some of my code here and show you that. I don't want to do lists. That'll be fine. Everything has logging. Go ahead.
It looked like you were logging each action that people took in the form, you know, like if you click on a certain area, you're logging pretty much everything. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah. So absolutely, because of course we ask people what steps did you take beforehand, because of course that's important. And nobody in 25 years of support did anybody know what they did beforehand. And I understand that. So this way we could say, if it was happening more than once, we could walk them through the steps of saying, just turn this and this on.
Right.
And then their computer would generate this log file. And when they start their application up the next time, it goes out, grabs the log files, zips them, and sends them to us in our Dropbox file, our folder. And so now our programmers can just download it, take a look at it, and go, here's the steps you were doing. Now we can duplicate it, and you know, it's much easier to solve. And I'll show you the log. I think I'm going into the logs here. So I'll show you some of the things that the logs that have. But you can see that, as you saw, that you were very good at seeing that. You can see log debug write info. So we're just saying that we're entering into it. Now we have the log level, because we don't always want to grab the logs. And sometimes we only want different logs. And so we have a log level, and we can change these. The administrator can change these, or we can, so that the values as to when they'll be logged will change. So that's important. And we also had a way of keeping track of what methods had gone into beforehand to get to that spot. Now, of course, 4D has that built into version 18, which is very nice. So you can see that we log, and this one maybe just will log going in and going. Oh, there's all right, because here's an error, because this is a show status. And if I encounter something that I don't like, I want to write it to my log file so that I'll know about it. And then out here at the end to say I've left it. So we do logging for tons of things. And I'll just go click on here, and I'll go to some of the logs, and I'll just open them up in BB Edit. So here is a log I just picked up from, this is just from today, I think. Okay, is this the one I wanted? Maybe not. Yeah, well, this will do. Okay. It's got some other things in it, but you can see that, you know, typically I would do here and say, okay, the application is called Mycos. And so it gives us the date, the process ID, and if it's more than 1 millisecond, then it'll report how long that method took to run. So we wanted to build timing into every process from the ground up so that we could find the ones that are taking too long. So then the thing that I really like too, because if we're supporting customers around the world as we did, I can see that I'm going into this method. There it is. I'm registering. These are, and now I'm leaving that. And we also had a virtual structure, so we were loading that up. Then we have lots of lists. And since we went to 4D server, we took them out of the structure and we put lists into the data file. So we're loading those up, but this ensure mandatory, make sure that lists have the mandatory items that is required for that site, because it could be different based on the region that they're in. And license startup check, which is our licensing, which we all need that. That's all important. I'm just trying to go here. Oh, now data version and structure version and release version. So data version, that's what's recorded in the system as to the data version. And if the data is not that, then it's going to automatically go through and make whatever data adjustments need to be done. And structure version just tells us, okay, that tells us which structure they've actually got. And then of course there is a release version. So we have our own, it's just a date, but it'll have a B, C, or an A, or a D in front of it, that kind of thing. And then just gives us some more information, like where the data file is, that kind of stuff. And okay, ready for user log on. Now we see who logged in, that it was successful. And then we get a whole bunch of information about the hardware, which again is an important thing, because when you're supporting a product where you have zero control over the hardware, you need to know what that is. And then the logging, I was talking about logging at different levels, and we support from level 1, which is essentially everything, to level 99. And it's telling me here what the log levels are set at. So, go through, and now the startup is done. And I deleted a whole bunch of stuff, but now it's going on to the on exit database method, that kind of a thing. And
boy, that logging is invaluable in itself, and it would be a lot of work to write that into everything in appropriate places in the application without the macros, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was it's not nice. So, and I've done that. Like when I wrote the logging in the Argus development environment, fortunately I had the tools already written that I could modify code, and I spent 2 months enhancing the logging. And so whenever I did an enhancement that I really liked, or had a bunch of them, then I would just write into the tool to go and make the change to the whole database. So it went out to every method and changed whatever needed to be done. And of course, it could only do that because we have structured code that we know where things are supposed to be. So that's a huge time saver, and gives confidence on that it's all there. Now here's another thing that I really like. I'll show you this one. Now this one, and you'll see it in the another one of the screens, but this one also logs out, writes a log out in the top of every method as I'm programming, and I'm sure that we're all this way, is that we get into the code, we think, okay, we're going to have this method, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. So we write that. But gee, X is getting to be a little bit harder to finish than I thought. And so I'm not going to get to Y and Z. So in the method, I will write, and there should be in here. Yeah, there it is, code to polish. So then what I'll write in here is I'll just go JDB 1, blah, 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 2, blah, 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 whatever I want to do, write it in there. Now it's recorded that I haven't got those done yet, but it's reminding me so that I don't forget, because that's a thing that happens to all of us, right? These are features that I want to add to this method. Well, what's happening if it ever gets out in the wild, or if we're just running and doing testing before we go through a validation, anytime it hits any method with code to polish notes, it goes in there and tells us about it. So that we can go, wow, we got all those things. Are these things critical? Do we need to get this resolved before we release it? Or is it okay to let that go out in the wild with those features not written, right? And so this was the first way I did it, is with logging. And then I thought, yeah, but logging doesn't get developers' attention. If it isn't easy, developers aren't going to look at it. It's a fact of life. So you'll see how I've made that much easier. So that's that feature. But it's another one of my favorites. Let's see. Come on. Okay, we'll just let you hang out. Okay, and whenever we encounter an error situation, we will also write to our error log. So the error log only writes one line per error. And it does tell us when the application exited and when it started up, that kind of a thing. But I can look at this and I can say, okay, this happened at this time. And if this is enough information for me, that's great. I can go and look at it and fix it or resolve it. But if I can't, I can go back to that other log file, which is much, much more verbose, find this event at this time, and see where the user has been. Where's their footprints in the sand of the application? And it's so much easier to solve problems than to try to duplicate it by talking to the end user, get the information of what they did. That's still a process that needs to be done, but this makes it so you can really see what's happening. And what we can do is we can add additional logging code in that'll give us values of variables and stuff like that, so we can see as we're trying to troubleshoot it. And then we have some other logs, which I'll talk about later. But that's the logs button in here. Now, probably the single button that I use the most is the declare button. Where did my viewer go? I saw it disappear, my Explorer. There we go. I'm gonna grab any method here. Now we declare all our variables in the local, in every method. We do that because we want to make sure that in uncompiled, it's going to run more precisely like it's going to be in compiled. And I remember I just finished a job where the nothing was declared. And so I ran across two situations where the application didn't behave the same because of that. So there it is. And if you're like me, you're busy coding away, you're thinking about what you need to accomplish. Okay, I need to add a new variable here. So $VL, whatever, we'll do that. It doesn't matter. Equals 0. I'll just make it so that it's that way. And I could say, I need an object. Whatever, like that. Now, this method could be short like this one, or it could be several hundred lines, especially with using Orta and the new way of coding. You can easily have a form method that's 4,000 lines long. How are you going to go through it and make sure you got everything declared? Well, that's easy. You just copy and just a second, save, and I go up. What am I doing here? There we go. And I click on the declare button, and it's going through and it's declaring it, and it's rewritten the code and put it in there. So if there's old ones that were in there that were declared, it actually wipes that out is what it does. It goes through all of the code, finds all the variables, and by the naming convention that we have, it knows what it is, and so therefore it declares it.
That's nice. That'll help you react to the changing way of declaring variables.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I tried the other about 3 weeks ago. I thought, I think I can do this, where there's people that like the declaration stuff at the back. I thought that should be easy to do. And then I know that we had for a while, we had put, like, if it was a module, we put, like, for Windows, something to do with Windows, we put WIN all uppercase, underbar VT, underbar, and then the name, because we thought that'll, that really helps to identify what this is all about. And I put all three, and I tried to write a declaring method that would handle all three simultaneously. I failed. I may try it again, But I think what it will do, what I will end up probably doing in the Argus development environment is I will say, which way do you declare your variables? One of these three ways. And then it will plan on them being done that way.
I have a similar macro that I use to declare my local variables, and it only works if you follow a variable naming convention, like
That's
text
right.
variable _t, or begin with VT. But if you follow that convention, this is a wonderful thing. You just write your code when you're done. Just say declare my local variables, and boom, you got it. And it also, if you have done any typos, or you've added it like $I is $II. If you look at your declarations, you'll catch, oh, look at that. I've got a variable name that shouldn't be there, and you can find it and you can fix some of those typos.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And I, of course, this is and I remember the arguments and the old nug about, well, why do you put a V in there? That's precious characters character we just lost. Well, in trying to write code to declare myself, that little V in the front there, that really made my life a lot easier.
Yeah, I used to have that problem too, and then I've learned that, listen, some people have one way of doing it, and other people have another way, and one's not better than the other. Whichever works, that's the way to do it.
That's right.
It also helps determining between a variable and an array. So
the important thing is to have a way.
That's right.
Do it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's why I say create code standards. I don't say use mine. I say create code standards. Absolutely. And that's what this supports, right? So
now, how are you dealing with dot notation? Because when you start putting dot notation in, that complicates your variable declarations sometimes, your local variable declaration, when you've got to parse dots, on something.
Right. I would throw that question to Adam if he's done that, because he's been working on the ORDA rendition.
So the way Argus determines what is a variable, so it takes a look at specific characters to say, okay, it's now the end of a variable. So using dot notation is handled that way.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. Okay, so what I'll do, I'm gonna just get out of there. I think it's not a working one anyhow now. Okay, so that's the declare button, which is really good. Now remember when we did the startup where we would have, I showed you the point where it would have a data version or a structure version. And then if I do an update to a customer, and let's say it's got 3 more, we would write code that would update data across the whole system. So that means I would increment the data version that they're getting by 1. And then I will have to test it to make sure it actually works. Well, of course, in that process, I screw up. So now I have to go back and do that. So now I can go use this here, and I can say a data file version set, and it will come up and it'll tell me it's currently set to 29. What do I want to set it at? So I could set it back to 28 or 27 or whatever I wanted to do. Set it, and then on the startup again, it would go through the whole process again to make sure. But that's also a way, of course, that we make sure that everybody's got their data and their structure and everything is correct. So these are what I add in here are different than what Adam adds. Totally. We program a lot the same, but we program enough different that we would get irritated. Adam gets irritated if I would pull the rank on him back at Genoki and say you have to have it this way. So we've always done that of allowing the developer to put in here in these kinds of menus what they want. Declare reports. There's many reports that ADE will generate, and it generates it as a file on disk, and would just open that up so I can get that. What else? Oh, little things that are important too, like when I put comments in. So if I wanted to put, let's see, a comment in line that I added something, so you can see that there it is, right? Now, if I hadn't put that as all zeros, it would have put B0, 300, and that would indicate that this code was written because of bug with a tracking number of 300. And so, or if it's a tweak, what we called a tweak, a T code, that would be a feature. And in the later version of the tool, which Adam has got working in his copy, is that it will go out with specific bug problem. You could search by this code that's in the comments, and it'll show where all the code is, and you can jump to it so that you can quickly find all the places that some other programmer changed it or that you did. And you can go, okay, this is what was done. That, oh, here's the problem. That caused, it to cause a new bug, right? So those kinds of things. So that's where that's really important to be able to have in there and to automatically put into all of the comments. And it tells me which version I'm working on. And also it's an old way we had is that if somebody's name was here, it would show us who was editing the XLIF file when we were working on the server. Okay. So that's kind of all for the dev macros. I think the big thing to know about it is that it's these here, you can, in the commercial version, you can just drop a text file in and it'll import it and it will categorize them. There's a way that we tell you how to do that, and it'll import all of this, and it's your code. So it's your standards, not mine. And so it's all customizable by you. Any questions on the dev macros part? Nope. Okay, good, like that. So now I'm going to go.
I have a question, Jody. The
Sure.
The dev macros aren't really method macros. They're actually methods that run that function like a macro.
That's right. Exactly it. Yeah. And I have some methods, and you guys have probably done it. Well, it's, like this, it's not in this database, Jody's tools, right? And it actually calls a method in 4D that runs, that does things, right? So it's that nice interaction between them.
But this environment, does it actually interact with a method macro file or not?
It can, absolutely. It doesn't now. I don't have one, but it absolutely could.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that drop down there is from the method macro file.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
But those are all individual methods that it calls to do things. It's just not doing text replacement.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to go here to. Let's see. That's, oh yes, object viewer. That's the one I want. Okay, so back when Operaja's object tools came out, I got it, fell in love with objects. And since whenever that was that it came out, I don't remember which year, I can't imagine writing code without using objects. But the biggest frustration I had right away was my code wouldn't work. Of course, my code never works on the first round. And I needed to know, is it my code problem or is that the object, I'm not storing it in the object correctly. So what this does is it uses the objects. And of course, when 4D brought out their own object field, then what Adam did, probably about the same time as Canon Smith wrote his, Adam wrote his object tool that we use. And so it's with dot notation as well, so that it could do all of that stuff. And then we have various objects that we put in here that are standard in the way we program. So I'm going to say the process one. So when I click on that object, it will show me in the pretty format what's in there. What I can also go over here and click on it and get that detail, and then I can right click on it, open the object up, and go in and get more detail that way. So many different ways. And we can modify values. So if we wanted to change a value to have it run differently, we can do that. And the neat thing about this is we display this in compiled mode too, because it'll work and do everything it does in compiled mode. So if we needed to, and there's a problem, we or a system administrator could bring this up on screen and they could look at the values and report them to us. Even things like 4D's progress component. And if you're like me, you make mistakes and you crash out of the code, or you stop the code, and then I've got 3 little progress codes or dialogue sitting up there, starting to use up all my screen space. So frustrating. So Adam made a little tool that every time that it wrote the code, so that every time that the progress indicator came up, it populated inside dev, I think, upper here. And then you could right click on it, select which one, and you could, and if you don't know which one, you just say clear all progress bars, and poof, they're gone from memory. So little things like that. So with these, we record all sorts of things, and we did that as we needed to have them. But we've got, configuration, and within the application, there's all these kinds of things like the versions, when does it expire, license to whom. There's the data version, the structure version, the computer prefs version, the name of the application, all of those kinds of things that are in there. But we've got all sorts of things in there. There's the workstations information, the printers, which printers are hooked up to this computer and what is their preferred one. We have things like their preferred folder that they like to save their reports. Anything that makes it so that it supports your programming or it makes your job of programming easier. Now, one of with a lot of the kind of the more complex things that we ended up doing is that we could have, sometimes within the same process, we could have 2 or maybe even 3 windows open that are in the same process. That, of course, in the old days would have this the same process variable on them, because they are a variable on screen. And that was, of course, that really messed up the code. But now we can, of course, since 2011 or version 11, we could just use an object with a name, but not a variable name, right? So then that handled that very nicely. But with that, within a process, when a process starts up, a new object is created in this area. So that's its own memory container. And every time a form opens up, that creates a new container within that process. So you could have 10 things that are running the exact same code. It would create 10 processes with their form underneath it. And so that you can add as many kind of things in there. Like we would even have, to some point, we would even have that, okay, the form has been loaded or it hasn't been. And different other kinds of things. But the beauty of the way that Adam wrote this was that as you went out of a form, you didn't have to worry about all those objects that you had put stuffed values in. You didn't have to worry about clearing them out because they were inside of the form object and they were automatically deleted when you left the form. And of course, that was code that did that. And then when you kill that process, you don't have to worry about leaving behind all those values, which could be a lot for a process. They automatically get killed too. And that's just from the way that that we wrote, the way we handle new processes, and when we go to a form and that, it's all very standardized code. So we never had to worry about leaving behind memory, have leak memory. But the advantage, I think, of this here is that you really can see all of it, right? You can see exactly what's, list box. We never use the list box graphical editor to create our list boxes. All we do is we create a list box. It's got one column and that's all we ever do. Everything's written in code. And so list box settings, and they can be saved and saved by user. So that's where it's really nice, but it can have all of those values inside of, you can see this here. So you can look at what it's doing. This is such a valuable tool here, because when you want to code with it, it's just too important to know what's inside those objects. And I think it's far easier to see what's in these objects with this tool than it is in the object editor that 4D provides. Of course, I'm taking up more screen real estate, right? That's why I can do it, but it just makes it so much easier for me. And once you get used to these tools, they're really hard to give up. and I could talk about each of the things, but those are things that are a Windows list. There we have it. I have a list of all of the windows that are open, right? So now if I need to refer to a window and get it out front or do something with it, I know I go to the Windows list object, and because of our naming convention for everything is very standardized, I know I can grab it because it's written generically, and then I can do other things with it. And we record all the windows by user, when the window was last closed, what size was it, where was it on the screen, so that the next time that user goes into that window, it's going to appear where they want. And of course, with our medical application, where they would have sometimes 4 or 5 windows open at a time, it was really important to them that as the doctor went from room to room to room, that when they signed in, the windows were going to open up where they expected, not where the nurse had it beforehand. That kind of an idea. I think that's all I was going to cover with the object viewer. Is there any questions on this?
Are you still using object tools, or have you switched over to the 4D objects?
Oh no, we switched over to the 4D objects. Once 4D put out the object field, we saw the writing on the wall, and as soon as Adam wrote which he did pretty much right away, as soon as he wrote the dot notation to objects, boom, we were switched over.
Yeah.
Learned that long time ago. Go ahead, sorry.
Keep in mind the dot notation that the ADE currently is using is a string dot notation as opposed to 4D's dot notation, because back when I first developed it, the 4D dot notation wasn't available.
Right. Gotcha.
And so the solution for that, Adam, is you've already got that worked out though, right?
Oh yeah, yes.
I just want to make sure that they know that.
It just hasn't been moved over yet.
Yes. Yeah, we tried. That's one of the things we did is to try it out and see, does it still work? Because we were really worried about what are we going to do, right? And it works just fine. Okay, I will close out of that dialogue. And of course, what it does is it remembers where you like those windows open too. So for me, they would always open up in the specific spot.
So it's basically like you're saving your session.
Yeah.
Yeah. With
Yes.
nicely
Exactly.
organized information about everything that was going on.
That's right. Okay, so this is we call it dev control. I don't like that word, but that's kind of the way it is. And it started out as just a method finder. And I remember when I talked a little bit about this, and on one of the boards that Tim heard about that and said, how did you do that? And I just gave him the command, and within 6 hours, he'd already sent it out on the NUG that people could use that feature. So it's just an example of it's the commands in 4D that are allowing us to do this. But what this does is it goes out and it'll find all of the methods and gets information about them. Some of them, like the number of lines, so that in this little application, I know that I've only got, I've got 248,000 lines of code. I'm a stats guy. I like to know that kind of thing. And it pars 2,866 methods, and there's 32 that it could not. And I can click on the show button, and it takes me out to my, you guessed it, log file, where I can see what those 32 are, and then I could go in there and see why it didn't do it. But really, what started this one was just simple. When you've got a large database, it's like, first of all is, what's the name of the method that I want? And so I can go and I can just say, I can go, I'm going to find one over here, and then I'm going to, okay, so it's a ship, right? So I type S, right? There we go. So I don't have to, with the Explorer from 4D, you got to make sure you're above where you want to go, and you got to type quick to try to get it close to it, and then use your mouse or the up and down arrow keys to try to get to the method you want, and then you can open it up. Well, it just got I thought this is crazy. And they give us the tools that allows us to do it so that we can have it this way. And then as I got into some projects, I would there'd be a method I used fairly regularly, but I could never remember how I named it. Now it's probably an indicator I named it wrong. But so then what I did in code, what we have as part of our standard is we have it search by. In the search by, whatever words I put here, just separated with a space, that gets hauled in the, when it parse through all the methods, that gets put into here, and I can search on those words too. So that means I can find methods based on other words rather than just their method name. So you could do all sorts of things like that. And of course, once you find something you want, you just double click on it and there it is on screen, opened up. And so now you can work on it. So I just found it to be, again, this is not whiz bang, but when you're working in 4D code all day long, it saves so much time to have that kind of capability. Now you'll notice that some of these have got yellow. Well, that's because they have, remember that code to polish ability? There's things that I needed to do. Well, this one I haven't finished testing on. So I need to go through and test that specifically, that code. And current method, looks like there's, well, of course, this one was delivered. So there's not too many that are in there that have got other stuff in it. And of course, I can go through and say, I want all methods, or I want only my trigger methods to show. So as we, I don't think I'll have any trigger methods. Oh, there we do, a little bit. Or I could say my preemptive methods. As I went through and wanted to make certain things preemptive, then I could go through and tell it, oh, just show me the preemptive ones. Or as I'm scrolling through the list, they'll show up pretty obviously as to what they are. So I think something that's really important is I could go and with a team developing is I could go to polish methods. Okay, what do I need to do today? Well, obviously I need to finish writing the code in the methods that I've got. So my to polish is important. Or if there's a programmer that's left or a programmer's on vacation, then, well, for now it's just all of them, but with the ability to, I want to add in the ability to select somebody else's code that needs to be polished. And of course, that is good from the perspective of you doing your work, but it's also good from the perspective of releasing a product out. Are you ready? And also from the perspective of a manager looking to see what's been going on, that kind of thing. Okay. This is probably something that all of you do, but we'll, just in case you don't. Oh, I don't need to do that. Yeah, okay, there's one. I just brought up some code. And so a little feature that I caught and on the NUG back in those days was that if you put in whatever you put in your comments of the method, it will show up when you put your mouse over the method name. Now, okay, I thought with version 18, well, that's going to be all replaced because 4D is putting that down below, but they don't put the comments in. They just say whether it's a long int or string, whatever. And so I got, oh, nope, this is still valuable because when I put my mouse over it, it gives me what I want. Oh, there's one mandatory and there's 3 optional ones, and here's what they're all about. And so that's really nice. So of course, what we did, because we standardize our code, well, I'll go into that one. I think that was log to bear right info, wasn't it? Because we standardize our code, we have all the parameters here in that location. And so I wrote a method that it goes through all the methods in the database, and it puts those in puts that information in the comment area of each method in the Explorer. So again, it's not something that, if you make it easy enough for ourselves and for your team to do, people will utilize it, and then it makes life easier for everybody else. Okay, so that's that one. A simple little tool like a method editor or method finder. I built a form finder too, and then I realized, oh, I can't open up the form. There's no command for it, but there is now, I think in 18R6.
Now that you can have much fancier comments, you can write the comments in Markdown
Yes.
You're really going to be able to make that nice.
Yes, I've thought about that. Well, I think
Yeah.
it was when the 4D guy that was there that was doing the markdown stuff and
Mm.
talking about it, and I was really keen on that because my mind was thinking, wow, I'm going to be able to do a lot of things now with that.
Yeah, you're able to control the hover, what comes up on the hover, when you see the method and
Yes.
the method and the method.
Yep.
And separately from what you see in the comments window, which
Right.
is also groovy. So,
Exactly.
it doesn't have to be just one way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to have to support both the new method, the way to comment things, and the old way, right? So that's something, but I don't see any problem with it thus far. The method compare, I've ripped this apart, but it was working because what we had built in is that it was before the project mode, of course. And every time you save a method, it would get written out to a local network resource folder with the date and time. And so what would be displayed here are all the versions of that method we displayed here, and you could click on it, the two that you want to compare, and you could have them up on screen and it would analyze the differences. So we were doing project mode before there was project mode, shall we say, because it would export out the methods automatically, and we could automatically import them back in too. So we could do date and time stuff like that. But that's all kind of, I'm not going to try to compete with GitHub and all the others. They're too feature rich. So this may just end up being where you can pick which tool you want to use to do compares, because there's good tools out there that do that, and it'll bring it up. So it's right in with your tool. Time log, I'm really not going to go into that, but that's just, that's your log of work. The nice thing is it knows about it as you're working in it. And I actually tested this out because with an Excel spreadsheet, I recorded my time for a month, but I used this. And what I did, or just let this operate, and then at the end of the month, there's a report I can run, and it came within 15 minutes of what I had recorded by Excel spreadsheets. So I tend to think that probably this was more accurate than me. By looking at all of the comments that I made in the code, right, times and stuff like that, by commenting my code all the way through it, it goes through and it grabs all of that information. And it's nice too, because if a customer says, well, what did you spend your 25 hours on? Okay, I have no problem with that question now. Boom, there's the report. Here's all the things that I did in those 25 hours. So that's really nice too, because as one of my clients said back in the early 90s, he said, it was Sperry Sons. So they're a worldwide manufacturing company for oil well. Well, they also do the oil well servicing too. But they said, when a big truck comes in, I don't mind paying them $10,000 because I see them, getting the forklift out and unloading it. You come in with a little 3.5-inch floppy, plunk it into the computer and walk out the door and you give me the same bill, so that's kind of a thing. How do you justify? Because people don't see the code and all the work you did. So it's a nice tool to be able to do that. Of course, features. This was really like our germs. That's that application that I had written to run, but it's to add in the bugs and the feature requests, that kind of thing, assigning them to a programmer. They're given a priority, assigned to which client's requesting it, all that kind of stuff. Notes, I'm going to enhance that a lot more. Then we have a linter, which I built. And I spent far too long on that because I was having too much fun as I went through my code, because I wanted to make sure that all my code was standardized. So what the linter allows me to do, and I've got some code in here. It allows you to make up rules. And what we decided on, because we have very different ways of coding, if it's a form method, if it's an object method, if it's a project method or a trigger, right? All of those kinds of things. We have very specific ways of writing. So then we split it up that way. So if I go into, say, well, let's go into a form method. And so this is the linter for the form method. Now, this is us writing the code in here. And so it goes through and it because it knows, you know, these headers, what's supposed to be in it. And there's really trigger points like the history and when you hit that and there's all the compile. Now, we love to do the if true to collapse things. And then the end if. So it would look for, okay, when is that? So it could go and find things. And then it would say, well, I know you're supposed to have these things. Are they there? Whoops. Are those lines of code there? If they aren't, it would write a report. In the report, it would write out that, hey, those things are not there. And so it can find all sorts of them. It find missing case ofs, although you really shouldn't have a problem with that. But even to the point where I'm a little sloppy with my code in the sense that sometimes I like to put a few extra lines of spaces in my code because maybe just the way my brain works. Well, the way Adam's brain works, those extra spaces, he goes, get them out of there, right? So we wrote it in that the spaces had to be the standard that we agreed upon, right? So all of those kinds of things. And I know there's many other people out there writing linters and they run this, say, every night. And in the morning you come in and there's your report of all of the things that have a problem, you know. And so, and what I've done is also I've put in the reporting method. I want to know what rule, you know, I look at it and I go, what rule is that? That's stupid. Then I can go and look at it and say, oh yeah, okay, that's why that's there. But I can, you know, find that there's a problem. This one, the problem, I'll make these wider too. But how I work on these, I click on this thing that moves the highlighted one to the top. So I just start at the top. I look at that, okay, created by history line format to fix uses 3 spaces. So I can click on it and, you know, and so then I can fix up whatever that is. Now that's how finicky we can get on our standards, right? So I can fix it, delete that one, go to the next one. And opens it up. And of course I can look at it and say, well, there's a blank line after right there. That shouldn't be there. Now, those are things that are not, you know, are obviously not critical to the code running, but you can write things. I'm just trying to think of some things off the top of my head. Well, maybe there's some, but there won't be any in here, right? Because of course this has gone through it all. Well, here's one. All the code that we write, out of the box, it's ready to be internationalized. All you have to do is get the XLIF strings converted. So every string we use is done in such a way that it can be internationalized. And so it's saying that on line, I think it's 91, that there's the get localized string. So I can go down here to line 91. And I don't see it there. Of course, this is old. I haven't changed this since I went to this. I was going to go to the summit, right? Because it tells me here, when was this report run? On the 14th of March at 1:30 in the afternoon of 2020. So maybe this got changed. But if we've got an object that we haven't put a XLIF string in for it, then it's going to complain and let us know.
It looks to me like it's line 89. You've got a text string there without it being wrapped using the util get localized string.
Yeah, thank you. And the way we do that, when Adam first wrote it, we were actually looking for the XLIF resource, and we thought that's too hard. You know, that's slowing us down too much. So the way it works is we don't even actually have to create the XLIF resource. We just put in the command. Do you remember what it is, Adam? It's X. I can't remember what it is called.
The wrapper method?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
util underscore get underscore localized string. It's right there in the report.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, util, right. Yes, it's a util. So instead of having that error message like that,
Oh, you did until.
that's why. That's why it didn't util. I kept pressing tab to have it come up. So I have something that's that long, right? Say to there, or to there. That's all I have to do. So my coding really hasn't had to change much to make my application ready to go international. All I have to do is, and we have it here in our XLIF string, which is the next tab I'll talk about, it goes out and it collects what are all of the strings and where are they from for my application.
That's
And
nice.
then when I want to do it, I can send that to somebody to give me what those strings should be in whatever language I need it to be. And there's companies that do that. So that fixes that problem, Adam. So there's a legitimate problem that it found, right? So that's what the linter can do. And you can write your own rules because it's just 4D code. And you write them to your needs and away you go.
Joe, do you have a question?
Hmm?
So on the linter, this is part of what the component is going to be, right?
That's right.
So if I want to write my own linter methods,
Yep.
Your component is going to be compiled. So you have a mechanism that I can provide a list of host method names that the component will then call to do linting?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, again, that's where the project format is going to help that, right? Because 4D is going to be able to do that. That was, I remember another request that I had of JPR one day I was in Paris, and that ability to do that, because we used to do that with Footrunner, right? We would send out a quick fix with Footrunner out, and we built in every one of our methods. It would check to see if there was a Footrunner that needed to be run instead of itself, and it would do that. So that's
Wow.
that way.
So you're saying that you would like, instead of having to share a host method and then pass the name of that method into the component for the linter to call it, you want the linter to just go look for particular method names in project mode and say, oh, here's they are, run these.
Okay, I'm not quite getting that. Can you say
All
it
right,
again?
forget it then. I was
Okay.
just thinking, I mean, for a component to access a host method, you've got to share it, and pass that name to the component. So when the component calls the method, that method in the host, the method
Yep.
shared and it'll run.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, well, if you're in project mode, the component could just look
Yeah,
at
in that directory.
but that it may not allow that, because then it violates then the component can run anything the hell it wants to, and maybe
That's right.
You shouldn't. So I forget that. That was me thinking.
Yeah, no, it's a good question though, and we're going to encounter that as we do, as I'm moving it into a component. The biggest thing I had to learn, I just learned in the last few weeks, you may have seen my posts on the forum, is because I needed to save all of this data, not inside the host database, but inside an external database. So me and SQL have been getting reacquainted. Okay. But this is a powerful tool. And I know I've talked to a few people once I made that presentation about this tool, that they talked about the things that they do, and it really gives you confidence that your code is up to snuff. And there's the XLIF strings. Now, again, this has only got what, 2,866 methods. That's including object methods, but it went through all of those objects, and I like to record it. It took 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go through it. And it says, here's all of your XLIF strings. So I know where it is. I know the language that it is. There's what has to be translated. And this one with an underscore is 1,100 times in the database, but DESC is 13 times, right? So it conglomerates them. Now that can be a problem with translations, because of course the same English word that can be used in multiple places, that might not be true in a different language. So there is that issue with that. But it shows you, when that was added, where's the method path, there's the code, as per ISO standards as to what this word is. And of course it'll load up all the, and it'll, I haven't got it where it goes out and show me what other language have got that done, right? But it will do that. It'll go out to the XLIF file resources. Okay, so that's the dev control palette. We have a few more palettes, and Adam's working on making it, at least the one he's going to use is a single palette, which, you know, it's got some to it, but even standards as far as colors. And when you're coding away and you need that color, certain color, well, all you have to do is just drag that color and put it into your code, and plunk, there's the number, right? Goes in there, or the name. You can, of course, that works as well. And you can add new colors here, added that feature. So that's pretty much it with the Argus development environment. Any overall questions? I guess I'm supposed to be.
That's a lot.
I know we're running kind of long. I was interested in knowing more about how how it tracks time and does the time reporting. It's probably too much to go into right now. That sounded very interesting of how it would scan the code looking for comments with date timestamp information in there, and somehow provided that. So maybe so if your documentation provides information about how that works, maybe that's enough to just be able to read some of the documentation for this.
Sure. Yeah. I just figured it's too much in here, but you know, I spent a lot of time with that. I probably spent 6 months just with writing code that went through code and did things to it. So, but the big thing I want you to go away with, other than standardize your code, is it's just 4D code and you can write this yourself. Yes, you can buy the ADE, but you know, it's just 4D code that you can do. So
if nothing else, add some headers to your methods too, because there's too many 4D databases out there with pretty much zero commenting, you know, and let alone actual headers with, you know, describing what the method does and the parameters and whatnot. But this is a whole ton of work, and you guys must really be able to crank out quality development, given everything that you've done to engineer the environment itself.
right.
And
Yeah, I hate working without it.
Expected release date and pricing for ADE?
Well, expected for the non-ORDA one, it will be, I'm hoping in 4 to 5 months I'll have it out, and the expected pricing is $1,700 US.
it'll
Not compiled only, not source code.
That's right.
be a lot of work to put it all in a component as well.
Yeah. Well, that's really what I'm doing now. I'm just all making a component. Now, I've thought about, should I write that in version 18 or should I write it in version 17, right? And I've been doing it in version 18 because I like to work in the later ones, but I don't know. You know, maybe I should be writing it in version 18, get it out the door to be released, and then just upgrade it to version 18, and so that I can have both, right? Because I have to look it up, but I don't know. I think both the component and the host have to be written in the same version of 4D.
Not necessarily.
No? Okay.
Not necessarily. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
The host has to be at least as in at least the version of the component. The component can lag.
Right.
Yeah, you can have you can have a V17 database that's got a V16 or V15 component compiled, and it will work.
Okay. Right.
And you might be able to do it the other way, but your mileage may vary.
Yes, exactly it. So
yeah.
So you know, for me, it's just what is the marketplace going to want, right? So, and the order one, well, I'm going to get this one out the door before I comment when the, you know, the version that's going to be, we're going to be using all ORDA stuff in it. But it's not like this couldn't be used in an ORDA database, right? That's very true. Even though I'm using pretty much all classic code, the only thing I'm using ORDA with is some nice code that Tim gave me for uploading all of my log files as zips to Dropbox.
Love that Dropbox. Use it all the time myself for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions or perhaps feature requests, or how did you do that? Or why did you do that?
Oh, I guess I didn't even do that much, did I? I had that database. If you want to know how I did a lot of those things, download the resources that Brent's got up on his GitHub there. And it's got a very simple database. Of course, there's no user password control on it. And there's very simple examples with error codes and declaring the variables and all of that. So you can see how you could write that for yourself.
Yeah, there's a link on the post on 4DMethod going to the GitHub repository, or you can just go to the 4DMethod GitHub repository and can get that material. But now, how long would you say that it's taken you to assemble all of these tools?
Well, yeah, sometimes I work really, really hard on it like I used to, and sometimes I didn't. But I think between the two of us, it probably took about 2 years, Adam. You better put your microphone on.
Yeah, 2 years, solid time.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I know that I was off and on working on it for about 3 years, but that definitely was not full time.
Yeah. But that's two of us doing it, so.
It's very satisfying though when you can write something like this and immediately use it in your development environment. That
Right.
was too easy. I just updated something, en masse in the code base, and in the end, it took hardly any time.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jody. Thanks, and thankfully you're able to be able to share this with us despite the summit in 2020 not working out for you. So
Right.
thanks, Adam, as well, for joining us and showing off your great stuff. So all right, I'm going to kick it back over to my screen share here.
Oh yeah, I probably have to get quit, right?
I think I can.
There we go. Oh yeah, you can eject me.
Yeah.
What a great way. Great tool.
There we go. And all right, well, thanks guys. And you can see our schedule for 4DMethod at 4dmethod.com/schedule. In our next meeting on May 12th of this year, we have Christophe Flamant. Oh, I think I misspelled it. Sorry, Christophe. Flamant. Shouldn't be an I there. But with different ways to access 4D from client to web API.
Mhm.
We have 2 open dates, June 30th and August 18th. Christophe, are you here? Yep. If you'd like to share a little bit about that, you're welcome to, or we'll just wrap up. And I'd like to give a special thank you to 4DMethod's Patreon supporters. That helps to fund a little bit of the time that it takes to put this all together. And thanks everyone for joining and for spending your own time to make all this possible. And so it's been really great to see Jody's shell there, and I'm sure it'll be interesting to see how people take advantage of that out in the wild. Thanks, Jim, as well from 4D.
My pleasure. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Adam. Good to see you both.
Okay. All right. Well, that's enough for today. We'll talk to you all soon. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.